Head count complete. Everyone is accounted for. Time to take off.
Alright, welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and we're going to wrap up our South America tour that we had going on here for a little while. So we are going to be, hang on one second. So we are going to be going over to Falkland Island today. So this is going to be our final South American mission here as we depart from southern Chile, which is, we're actually right on the border of Argentina, but we're going to be flying over here, staying out of Argentina and flying over to Falkland Islands. So appreciate you tuning in, appreciate the love and support. We also got Beyond ATC paired with us here, as well as our NeoFly app. So we got a lot going on. So we got Little Nav Map, we got the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, we have NeoFly, and we have Beyond ATC. So a lot going on, a lot to navigate here. So let's go ahead and get this thing up in the air. Looks like we got some either I think it's a sunrise going on. So we're going to take off all our covers here. This is the covers that generate the airspeed while we're up in the air. So we're going to do that. We're going to do the tie down. We're going to do the wheel lock. Oop. Wheel lock. Come on. There it is. And then we got to go around the wing to get the cover over here. So that's the final one. We're going to go ahead, hop in here. We're going to get startup and probably a pullback. Yeah, we do need a pullback. Alright, so we're going to get Beyond ATC loaded up here as it loads up the airports and the traffic. So we'll get that thing going, and hopefully we have a little more traffic down here as we head over to Falkland Islands. So we don't need a weather one, so we're going to go ahead, tune to ground, and we're going to request push and start.
Cheyenne Air November 11361 at ramp 3, request pushback and engine start.
Cheyenne Air November 11361, Guardiamarina Zañartu ground, pushback and engine start approved. Face east.
Alright, we're going to get the engine start.
You're good to go. Contact the tower for clearance.
Request the pushback. There he goes. Got the pushback going. EGYP is all done there. That's all we need for that communication. We'll go ahead and go back here.
Pushback approved. Face east. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
We're going to get IFR clearance.
Guardiamarina Zañartu ground. Cheyenne Air November 11361. Cessna Citation Schwauer. Ramp 3. Request IFR clearance to Mount Pleasant. Information Kilo.
We're going to shut off all these lights here. By
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Guardiamarina Zañartu ground. Cleared to Mount Pleasant. Runway 26. After departure radar vectors Bonta. Climb to 6,000 feet. Squawk 3744.
Cleared to Mount Pleasant, runway 26. After departure radar vectors Bonta. Climb to 6,000 feet. Squawk 3744. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
Alright, so we got the
Cheyenne Air
6,000 feet
November
approved.
11361. Read back correct. Call me back
Set.
when ready for start or taxi.
We are ready for taxi.
Roger that. Cheyenne Air November 11361. Cheyenne Air November 11361. Request taxi to the active.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Taxi holding point runway 26 at pilot's discretion.
Taxi holding point runway 26. My discretion. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Contact Williams Tower 118.5. Bye-bye.
Over to Tower 118.5. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
Alright, we got to switch radio frequencies to 118.5.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Holding short, runway 26.
Cheyenne Air November 11361, Williams Tower, wind 270 degrees, 15 knots, fly heading 260, runway 26, cleared for takeoff.
Fly heading 260, runway 26, cleared for takeoff. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
Pilot, have a nice flight.
Cheyenne Air November 11361, reset transponder. Squawk 3744.
Alright, 3744.
Squawk 3744. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
Altitude.
Cheyenne Air November 11361, contact Punta Arena Center 119.7. Have a good morning.
Center on 119.7. Cheyenne Air November 11361. Bye-bye. Punta Arena Center. Cheyenne Air November 11361. Good morning. 5,700 feet.
Cheyenne Air November 11361, Punta Arenas Center. Good morning. Identified. Climb flight level 450.
Climb flight level 450. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
Alright, we're going to see what we can do about reducing that. Seems pretty high at 45,000 feet. And we try to reduce it down to 35,000.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Request new cruise altitude.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. I didn't get that altitude. Say again altitude.
Let's do 33,000.
Request flight level 330. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Confirm new cruise altitude flight level 330.
Affirm. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Roger. New cruise altitude flight level 330.
Alright, there you go. So we got a little lower altitude here at 33,000. As we cross over 16. And let's see what we got going on. I'm going to trail. Go a little bit more to the right here. I don't think we want to cross over the border into Argentina and get a new radio contact. So we'll kind of fly up and around it. So a bit of a longer flight today. It's actually coming in at, let's see. What runway are we landing at here? It was 396, but when I put in the runway for our departure, it bumped up to 409, I think. But now I'm going to look at what runway we're landing at because I haven't put that in yet. So. What are we looking at here? EGYP runway number 28. So 416 nautical miles. So halfway decent one. But it would be a good one just to wrap up the South America tour here. So what was that, 416? Save that. I'm going to go over to NeoFly and see what we got going on with our pilots here. So, Snoop actually has landed and they're unloading, disembarking. Looks like they're over in Denmark or close to it. And then Hurricane still is going to be landing here. Estimated time 9:51 East Coast time, and right now it is 9:19. So Hurricane's got a minute, and then we are just taking off here, and we're going to be landing as well.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Contact Comodoro Rivadavia radar 125.5.
Contact Comodoro Rivadavia radar 125.5. Cheyenne Air November 11361. Comodoro Rivadavia radar Cheyenne Air November 11361. Passing flight level 295, climbing to flight level 450.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Comodoro Rivadavia radar identified.
Alright, we're actually climbing to 33,000. So we'll leave it at that. Alright, so we busted through Mexico and went down through the Panama Canal and then made our way down South America. Let's do a little recap here. So big mountains here on the west coast of South America and Chile. So basically here is like, I don't know, 100, like 50 feet above sea level, and then this was like 12,000 feet above sea level, this little mountain ridge here. So that was very nice to see. I think we went over to Venezuela, flew over Ecuador, I remember that. We flew over to Brazil, and where else did we go? I don't remember. I know we definitely hit Argentina up. Crisscrossed back and forth a few times, and then yeah, so basically now we're going to end it. We kind of wanted to head out to this island here, which we will complete, and we departed from SCGZ today, runway number 26. We're going over to waypoint Bonita, and then the other waypoint is over here at the end of these islands. No particular waypoint. I think it was just a geographical destination. And then we're headed over to the east side of the Falkland Islands. So should be fun. Haven't flown here before. Looks like the runway is pretty long. It's 8,493 feet in length. Parking is off to the right as well as to the left. We'll probably hit up the left side here and probably exit off into taxiway C and then head over to some parking, whatever they designate us. So that is the plan, and then we're going to figure out where we're going to go next. So if you guys have any ideas, we can transport the plane and our pilot over there for cost, and we can get there. So should be a good time. The only other thing I was thinking of is if we, well, it looks like there's only one other airport here. Alright, so beyond ATC, figuring out a few things here as we go. Right now I'm just doing the push buttons. We'll figure out how to do a actual voice one. So we're going to test that out a few times before we do a recording, but we should be able to, instead of just pushing our buttons here for a response, we can actually speak into the microphone, and hopefully it'll register what we're saying as long as we're following the same format as far as identifying who we are and what we're doing and who we're talking to. So that will be coming soon, I guess, over the next few weeks. We'll get that going once we figure out where else we're going to fly to and get that all straightened up, and then we'll do a couple of test runs as far as speaking into the microphone to give our intentions here. So, but so far beyond ATC has been pretty neat. Right now we're flying in a not so populated area, so it's relatively quiet, but I did fly into a few different airports that are a little more populated, as far as like the Raleigh-Durham International Airport over in North Carolina. That one, very populated, so you got some more contact between pilots. And ATC, that's not us. And then as well as when we're actually on the ground, you can see the other airplanes, and we installed another app there that actually has some different airlines on it. So you actually see like American Airlines, you see FedEx, you see UPS, and you saw United Airlines and some other ones. So a little more realism into the mix here. So once we get into a more populated area beyond ATC, we'll kind of show its capabilities. Right now it's relatively quiet, so but we're pretty psyched about that for beyond ATC, to get rid of the communications here. So basically what we did was we silenced this. The only thing we have to do is the pushback. So that's it for beyond ATC as far as right now. That is what our plans are. I'm gonna go that ding. Was NeoFly, and right now NeoFly, we're currently sitting at 26 million. So once we finish this flight, yeah, once again, we're either going to, since we got some time now that it's quiet, so there's another airport here, which is how far? That's only 26 nautical miles. That'd be a pretty short flight. And that's a relatively small airport. We'd be flying into runway number 27 if we were to do that. So that would add a little bit of length to it. Since we would be coming from this direction, we'd basically fly past it and then turn around and land in there. But other than that, it doesn't look like there's many airports here. So not a very populated area once again. We'll be flying up by Goose Pond there. So yeah, once we finish this, I think once we finish this flight, we'll go ahead and transfer our pilot to wherever we want to go. So obviously we've been flying over the United States for a while. Basically took a big round trip around that. We flew down to Mexico, to Brazil, South America. So now it's time to go somewhere else. Blah, blah, blah. So we can do anywhere up here we haven't flown. We can do Ireland. We can do Germany. We can sort of make our way, throughout this whole section if we wanted to. We've done a few in Japan, South Korea. We can go to Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines. That might be neat. Probably start our way down here and fly up through the Philippines, and then go over to Taiwan and hop and skip over here into China. I don't know. We got options, ladies and gentlemen. Options. We're coming up to our next waypoint pretty soon. Flying over the ocean pretty good here. Nice, we got our chemtrail here. We can probably take off our safety and seatbelt lights for our passengers. Increase our engine output a little bit. Get our speed going a little higher. Just realized we were pretty low. Try to get that into like the 200s. So right now we got 87% engine output, and it's creeping up. 170, 171. See where that kind of levels out at, and see if we can make an adjustment to try to get this thing going a little further. Still climbing at 198. Alright, we are about a third of the way through the flight here. We have 292 miles to go. Started out at 416 or 419, something like that. 416. It does look like we're dialed in here at squawk number 3744, communication channel 125.5.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Clear direct Mount Pleasant Airport. Expect further instructions closer to destination.
Wilco, clear direct Mount Pleasant Airport. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
I'm just gonna get a drink real quick and I will be right back. Alright, I am back. I got caught up talking to my kid. And let's see if we missed anything here. Nope, I think we're still good. We got clear direct to Mount Pleasant Airport, Cheyenne Air N1136. So we didn't miss anything too important there, so that is a good thing. Still got our trail? No, we don't. We'll make a small adjustment here to our flight plan, or to our heading. We got 276 at 90%, so that's pretty good. We're cruising there pretty good. Maybe go ahead and start some meals, I guess, for our flight attendant Camille. Oh, then what was that called? Let me see if I can find it. Can we get some facts about Falkland Islands? Push Talk Radio. Let's see what we got. We gotta sign in now to listen. Alright, let me see if I can sign in. So welcome back. We can explore the map again. And now we go down here.
The Falkland Islands is an archipelago in the South Atlantic Ocean on the Patagonian Shelf. The principal islands are about 300 miles east of South America's southern Patagonian coast and about 1,752 miles from the northern tip of the Antarctic Peninsula at a latitude of about 52 degrees S. The archipelago, with an area of 4,078 square miles, comprises East Falkland, West Falkland and 76 smaller islands as a British overseas territory. The Falklands have internal self-governance, and the United Kingdom takes responsibility for their defence and foreign affairs. The Falkland Islands capital is Stanley on East Falkland. Controversy exists over the Falklands' discovery and subsequent colonisation by Europeans. At various times, the islands have had French, British, Spanish and Argentine settlements. Britain asserted its rule in 1880, but Argentina maintained its claim to the island. In April 1982, Argentine military forces invaded the islands. British administration was restored 2 months later at the end of the Falklands War. Almost all Falklanders favour the archipelago remaining UK overseas territory. Its sovereignty status is part of an ongoing dispute between Argentina and the United Kingdom. The population consists primarily of native-born Falkland Islanders. the majority of British descent. Other ethnicities include French, Gibraltarian and Scandinavian, immigration from the United Kingdom, the South Atlantic island of St. Helena, and Chile has reversed a population decline. The predominant language is English. Under the British Nationality Act 1923, Falkland Islanders are British citizens. The islands lie on the boundary of the subantarctic oceanic and tundra climate zones, and both major islands have mountain ranges reaching 2,300 feet. They are home to large bird populations, although many no longer breed on the main island because of competition from introduced species. Major economic activities include fishing, tourism and sheep farming, with an emphasis on high-quality wool exports. Oil exploration, licensed by the Falkland Islands government, remains controversial as a result of maritime disputes with Argentina.
The Battle of Goose Green, the Argentine Military Cemetery, and the Bodie Creek Suspension Bridge.
The Bodie Creek Suspension Bridge in the Falkland Islands is one of the southernmost suspension bridges in the world. It was built in 1985 from a kit fabricated in England by David Rowell and Co. in order to shorten the distance sheep needed to be driven from southern Lafonia to the shearing sheds in Goose Green. Background: a bridge across Bodie Creek was
heading 055. Expect further clearance in about 1 to 8 miles.
Turn right, heading 055. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
Alright, pause the Bush Talk radio because we need to turn right heading 550 according to Beyond ATC.
first proposed in 1932 as part of an effort to centralise the Falkland Islands Company. Vic Lafonia sheep farming operations at Goose Green, which consolidated the shearing of flocks from nearby farms including Darwin and Walker Creek. A bridge was required to allow the sheep raised at Walker Creek to be herded to Goose Green, avoiding a lengthy and arduous detour around Bodie Creek, an inlet of Choiseul Sound. The FIC approved the proposals at a meeting on the 2nd of March 1924. Construction. The bridge was purchased by the FIC for £2,080, equivalent to £38 in 2020, from David Rowe and Governor. The structure was shipped, in kit form, to the islands aboard the Pacific Steam Navigation Company's vessel SS Ballina. The bridge was erected by engineer Charles P. Peters, assisted by a stonemason/foreman and a gang of around 14 navvies. Construction of the steel structure began in October 1984 and was complete by July 1985. The approach roads were complete by October 1985, allowing the bridge to open in time for the start of the sheep shearing season. The structure was inspected by a party of the Royal Engineers during the 1982 Falklands War. Structure today. The bridge spans 400 feet. Its principal parts are an 8-foot roadway suspended from 4 primary 2-inch thick steel cables supported by 2 40-foot high towers at the ends of the span. It is deteriorating and in need of restoration. The Falklands Island Museum and National Trust has raised concerns that the structure may be lost. The bridge can be visited by tourists and lies around a 15-minute drive south of Goose Green. The bridge closed to traffic in 1997.
So that was that one. The Battle of Goose Green.
The Battle of Goose Green was an engagement between British and Argentine forces on 28 and 29 May 1982 during the Falklands War, located on East Falkland's Central Isthmus. The settlement of Goose Green was the site of an airfield. Argentine forces were in a well-defended position, within striking distance of San Carlos Water, where British Task Force had made its amphibious landing. The main body of the British assault force was the 2nd Battalion, Parachute Regiment, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Herbert Jones. BBC radio broadcast news of the imminent attack on Goose Green, knowing that this had likely...
Alright, so turn left heading 290.
Turn left, heading 290. Intercept the 26 localizer. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
It's an interesting turn of events there. Pretty big turn. So we're going to intercept the 26 localizer. So you're starting to see the islands up on the map there. We do have 117 nautical miles to go. Here we are, located right down here. We're still turning. I wonder if this is that line that we're going to be intercepting. Flight plan originally was this. Almost like going west, which is interesting. So kind of curious how far we're gonna have to travel going heading 290. We got 27% fuel. My only concern here is that we're actually flying away from the intended airport. So we got 115 nautical miles to go. We were sitting at 113. Hope we're not going all the way over here. Waypoint ASKS. not sure how to figure out. Let's see. .26 localizer. Let's do a search for that. Aviation localizer, LOC, is a subsystem of the Instrument Landing System, ILS, that provides pilots with lateral or horizontal guidance, aligning the aircraft with the runway. Okay. So that's got to be it then. So I wonder if we're going to be landing at runway number 10. Alright, but we'll follow Beyond ATC's instructions here. I've never had one where it takes us this far off track, but we will go. So 121 nautical miles to go. But I'll tell you what though, so this does make flying a little more interesting as far as, you know, what your intended plan was versus what Beyond ATC gives you. A little more realism here in the sense of redirecting your plans and figuring out how to adjust accordingly to them. You know, whether or not it's the heading, or sometimes it's the communication channels here, or the squawk number. Like here, the squawk number 3744, we had to manually input because that was not on our original plan. guess we can continue on with our bush talk. For the Battle of
He
Goose
forewarned
Green.
the Argentinian defenders. The broadcast provoked immediate criticism from Jones and other British personnel. After the attack began in the early hours of 28 May 1982, the 2nd Parachute Battalion advance was stalled by fixed trenches with interlocking fields of fire. Jones was killed during a solo charge on an enemy machine gun post. The Argentinian garrison agreed to a ceasefire and formally surrendered the following morning. As a result of their actions, both Jones and his successor as commanding officer of the 2nd Parachute Battalion, Major Chris Keeble, were awarded medals. Jones received the posthumous Victoria Cross and Keeble received the Distinguished Service Order. The Argentine Military Cemetery, Spanish Cementerio de Darwin, is a military cemetery on East Falkland that holds the remains of 286 Argentine combatants killed during the 1982 Falklands. It is located at Fish Creek to the east of the Darwin settlement, the location of the Battle of Goose Green. There is a replica of the cemetery at Brazzetui in Buenos Aires province, Argentina. History. When the war ended on June 14, 1982, most Argentine bodies were left in temporary graves close to where they fell. Britain offered to send them to Buenos Aires, but the ruling military junta said they were already in their homeland. In December 1982, the British government commissioned a firm of civilian undertakers under the command of British Army Colonel Geoffrey Cardozo to consolidate all the temporary Argentine graves on the islands to a single location. Assisted by the armed forces, they identified and documented each Argentine grave site and brought the bodies to Port Darwin. As at the time, this was the largest single Argentine grave site, with the bodies of the 47 Argentine soldiers killed at the Battle of Goose Green and buried there soon after the battle. Many of the bodies collected were without dog tags, so best efforts were made to identify each soldier from personal effects found on the body. Single items were not considered conclusive, but collections were. All were given a Christian burial with full military honours. Each grave is marked by a white wooden cross with the name of the soldier on it, if known, or Soldado Argentino Solo Conocido por Dios, English Argentine soldier known only by God, if not. The cemetery is protected by a walled enclosure with a cenotaph including an image of Argentina's patron saint, the Virgin del Lujan. Surrounding the graves, the names of the 649 Argentine soldiers, sailors and airmen who lost their lives in the conflict are inscribed on glass plaques, with no indication of military rank or service, as requested by their families.
Alright, I think that pretty much takes care of bush talk. Or no, there was one more. I don't think we listened to this one over at Stanley.
Stanley is the capital of the Falkland Islands. It is located on the island of East Falkland, on a north-facing slope in one of the wettest parts of the islands. At the 2016 census, the town had a population of 2,460. The entire population of the Falkland Islands was 3,398 on Census Day. On 9 October 2016, Stanley is represented by 5 of the 8 elected members of the Legislative Assembly of the Falkland Islands: Stacey Braga, Barry Ellsby, Mark Pollard, Roger Spink and Leona Riddle-Roberts. Stanley was occupied by Argentine troops for about 10 weeks during the Falklands War in 1982. The Argentinians renamed the town Puerto Argentino, and although Spanish names for places in the Falklands were historically accepted as alternatives, This one is considered to be extremely offensive by many islanders. Stanley suffered considerable damage during the war from both the Argentine occupation and the British naval shelling of the town, which killed 3 civilians. After the British secured the high ground around the town, the Argentines surrendered with no fighting in the town itself. The beaches and land around it were heavily mined, and some areas remain marked minefields. Since the Falklands War, Stanley has benefited from the growth of the fishing and tourism industries in the islands. Stanley itself has developed greatly in that time, with the building of a large amount of residential housing, particularly to the east of the town centre. Stanley is now more than a third bigger than it was in 1982.
Nice, so that takes care of Bush Talk Radio. For all of the Falkland Islands, so to take care of that. Let's see if we can find something about the airport that we took off at. Not so much. Other than there's a lighthouse nearby.
Stanley is the capital of the Falkland Islands. It is located on the island of East Falkland, on a north-facing slope in one of the wettest parts of the islands. At the 2016 census, the town had a population of 2,460. The entire population of the Falkland Islands was 3,398 on census day. On 9 October 2016, Stanley is represented by 5 of the 8 elected members of the Legislative Assembly of the Falkland Islands: Stacey Braga, Barry Ellsby, Mark Pollard, Roger Spink and Leona Vidal Roberts. Stanley was occupied by Argentine troops for about 10 weeks during the Falklands War in 1982. The Argentinians renamed the town Puerto Argentino, and although Spanish names for places in the Falklands were historically accepted as alternatives, this one is considered to be extremely offensive by many islanders. Stanley suffered considerable damage during the war from both the Argentine occupation and the British naval shelling of the town, which killed 3 civilians. After the British secured the high ground around the town, the Argentines surrendered with no fighting in the town itself. The beaches and land around it were heavily mined, and some areas remain marked minefields. Since the Falklands War, Stanley has benefited from the growth of the fishing and tourism industries in the islands. Stanley itself has developed greatly in that time, with the building of a large amount of residential housing, particularly to the east of the town centre. Stanley is now more than a third bigger than it was in 1982.
Alright, so we are going to be coming up on that longitude line, so I would say if we don't hear back from radio contact, we're going to make a hard right-hand turn towards the airport anyway, because fuel will be becoming an issue if we don't. We've got 21% fuel left. And we're sitting at, we don't even know how many miles. All right. It took us away from our flight plan. About 160 nautical miles to go. So, interesting. Alright, so I do think we got to turn around here. So we're just going to go ahead and adjust our heading on our own and see what Beyond ATC says. Because otherwise we're going to run out of fuel. Alright, we got 15% fuel. Definitely keeping an eye on that one. Once we see the islands, again, I think we are going to request our descent. It should be pretty soon.
Cheyenne Air, November 11361. Approaching our top of descent. Ready for descent.
Cheyenne Air, November 11361. Descent to flight level 330.
Descend to flight level 330. Cheyenne Air, November 11361.
Cheyenne Air, November 11361. Contact Mount Pleasant top-down approach 125.905.
Contact Mount Pleasant talkdown approach 125.905. Cheyenne Air, November 11361.
Alright, so here's an example beyond ATC. So 125.9, I think it was, or 95, isn't on the push button thing here, so that's where we're going to have to manually do it. So we go down here, zoom in here, go to 125.95 and switch that to COM, and then that puts up announce on frequency.
Mount Pleasant talkdown. Cheyenne Air, November 11361. Good day. Flight level 329er with information Papa.
Cheyenne Air, November 11361, Mount Pleasant talkdown approach. QNH1013, expect radar vectors for ILS approach runway 28.
QNH1013, expect radar vectors for ILS approach runway 28. Cheyenne Air, November 11361.
Alright, we do see land. We got 13% fuel left. We're going to be landing in runway 28, which is on the opposite side. And we got to follow ILS rules here.
All aircraft be advised information Quebec now current. QNH101 tree.
There is definitely land up above, or up ahead. Alright, so we just inserted ILS 28 into our map here. So we got 130 miles to go to our landing thing. So, and we got 12% fuel left. I think it'll be tight, but I think we'll make it. Looks like our neighbors are leaving. Both George and Todd. Followed one after another. And our cat Phoenix is taking a look at Todd. He's a little sketchy. I think we can adjust our heading to 89 degrees. We got the wind helping us. It's at our back right now. This flight just popped up on little nav map. I got 65 miles to go. And we officially have the low fuel. Got 8% left. Three to go. See if we get yelled at from ATC. I'm just going to start descending.
Cheyenne Air November 11361. Contact Mount Pleasant Tower 133.35. Bye-bye.
Over to Tower 133.35. Cheyenne Air November 11361. Bye-bye. Mount Pleasant Tower, Cheyenne Air November 11361. ILS approach runway 28.
Cheyenne Air November 11361, Mount Pleasant Tower, wind 290 degrees, 14 knots, runway 28 clear to land.
Runway 28 clear to land. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
Alright. So we got clear land. That's fun. So I'll hold it at 10,000, reduce our speed below 200, get our landing gear down, do our flaps.
Altitude.
autopilot. Altitude.
All aircraft be advised, information Romeo now current, QNH1013.
We have touchdown. Contact ground for your parking assignment, then shut down your engine.
KN Air November 11361. Exit right next available taxiway.
Exit right next available taxiway. Cheyenne Air November 11361.
KN Air November 11361. Contact ground 130.3. Bye-bye.
Ground 130.3. Cheyenne Air November 11361. Cheyenne Air November 11361. Request taxi to allocated ramp.
KN Air
November 11361, ramp 6, taxi at pilot's discretion.
Ramp 6 taxi at my discretion. Cheyenne Air, November 11361.
Alright, we made it 5% fuel.
Transporter. Disembarkation in progress. Stand by. Transporter from dispatch. Disembarkation completed. Thank you. See you soon for another mission. Start your engine.